What's up, dudes and dudettes of the internet? My name's Scythe, and today we're going to be taking a look at Rogue Wizards. How y'all doing today, folks? Hope you're doing fantastically wonderful. Before we get started, we'd very much appreciate if you would cast a fire spell on the like button for me. Helps me out more than you know. This game is a blast. It's kind of like a roguelike tactical game, very similar to Final Fantasy Tactics, Disgaea, and there's a couple other modern games that it's like, but the names escape me right now, so you'll have to excuse. But I'm not sure how much of this we're going to actually be able to play into, probably into the town aspect, and then I'll kind of tell you all about the different mechanics. I mean, I call our character Budge Budge. You can choose male or female. Of course, I am a man, so I will choose that man character. You can go through a story mode and a gauntlet mode, which is always going to default to hard and is going to be permadeath. This game actually ends up being an insane challenge as well, especially considering that this is the normal difficulty and then there's only one harder than that, which hard, I guess, would be hardcore rather than hard mode because it's death is permanent. There are no second chances, meaning that I guess the same as hardcore in Diablo where you die once, that's all over. So you can, yeah, it says even right here, respawn in town when you die where the quest can be restarted. So you can pretty much play this entire game with your mouse and not needing to use anything else, you know? We're kind of stuck in our house right here, and the way that the game is generating, as you can see right here, let's just call it that, or creating the world as it were, is kind of just how the game works in general, because that's like your character's sight. So if an enemy is out of bounds, well, you'll get to see anyways. I'm so hungry. It has been, yes, almost 2 days since I've eaten. Nobody cares, you freak. JK, we all do. So we could end up going into these other sections and stuff. There has to be something valuable in here. Oh, does there? Can we not? Yeah, there we go. So we can kind of explore around. There's lots of secrets and stuff like that. Lots of different traps when you end up going into the dungeons and everything. And overall, I've actually been having a real good time with this one. The chest, thank the elements. And then this is kind of a pivotal role for the whole story where this scroll randomly summons us to an alternate dimension, or I guess just to a different area. And all of the characters that you end up running into have, in roleplay, ended up coming across the same scroll, right? What? Where am I? I don't know. Huh. So, of course, being the start of the game, you know, they're just giving us all the different items that we actually need. So we're getting, like, potions, and then we're going to end up getting a sword. And here we go. So this is the inventory menu, and they're trying to tell us you can put a bunch of stuff and equipment onto each of these slots. This is going to show you... what? Combat statistics are based on which arm? Yeah, okay. Just your stats in general, right? And the backpack is handy to place and store any items on your adventures. Drop weapons and items into the hotbar. All the standard affair stuff. You have a bag inventory as well. I'm not exactly sure why there is two different things. Maybe it's that one of them you don't get to keep. I'm not exactly sure about that one. But we'll deal with some of the more complex mechanics like that once we end up getting a little bit further into the video. Because, of course, we're going to run into that stuff. The other thing, too, is this map in the top right is very handy for navigating the area because, as you see, like, as we're kind of exploring the world and stuff like that, it's despawning, so you can't actually see what's going on. That's what this map is for. So these swords in the bottom left corner indicate that we are in combat. And it's turn-based combat, so we can end up always skipping our ability, or if we end up using a potion or switching our weapon or something like that, it's, of course, going to end up taking a turn. So we're going to try and stay here in the doorway. I mean, technically, I could back up. Just so that we at least can fight like one skeleton at a time. And you can see that they're kind of just attacking the environment and junk like that and going to attack us. Of course, we'll end up getting more stats a little bit later on in the game and get like shields and different weapon types. And the other thing too that I find a really neat mechanic in this game is the fact that through using a piece of equipment, like this sword for example, we're actually learning, like our character is learning to use it more efficiently. So you can see we're rank 1 out of 4 with this weapon. Now, every item that we end up finding in the game is going to end up having its own rank system. And it's not that you're getting better at using swords overall. Maybe it is something like that. I'm not exactly sure. I never got to the late game. But it's more about the fact that you're getting more efficient with that specific weapon, and thus it's going to end up giving you certain perks, right? So if we end up getting strong enough with this weapon, maybe it would end up having, I don't know, added damage or just an extra defensive stat or something like that, right? So you can see right here, we've got a Crimson Staff. It's got the exact same stats as our sword. However, it's doing fire damage instead of physical damage, which can be very useful because certain enemies you're going to come across are going to, of course, have different weaknesses. I didn't even notice that hat right there. So let's just grab that. It's auto-equipping them as well. And of course, you can find socketed goods, meaning that if we end up finding certain gems, we could actually put them on this armor just because it has 2 slots, you know. And there's legendary gear on my other file. Just as I was doing testing and stuff, I ended up finding a legendary weapon like right at the beginning of the game. So that was pretty much my go-to weapon that I was using the entire time. And crits, standard gaming stuff, you know. And here's one of the characters that we run into throughout our adventure, which you're going to be continually running into new characters that are kind of going to help you out while you're in the dungeon instance. And then as soon as you end up going to town, they're going to start benefiting your town. And then you're going to be off on your own again and probably have to find some other character, right? So it kind of just keeps going in that type of a progression. Hello, who are you? I'm Polum, or Palum, I guess. He's our new pal, and I've been waiting for you. Took you long enough to get here. What? You know who I am? Also, our character's all like, because he's like really, really weak right now, right? I know a magical scroll brought you here because we need you. Who's we? No time for questions. We need to fight our way back to the portal. You'll learn that once we're safe. Palum joined the party. Also, we're really, really weak. The other thing, too, that I do want to mention is as you're out of combat, it's not going to end up taking any turns to, like, switch your weapons or use potions and stuff like that. So you can kind of use that to your advantage. Ooh, what is this thing? Woof? Oh, it's a cute little dragon. Well, that barks like a dog. Come on, little fella, stick with me and I'll keep you safe. Okay, now I'll explain a little bit more about the pets when we get to the town, because that's where the biggest aspect of it comes in. But otherwise, pets are kind of a party member that you can take on your quests with you, but they kind of have a little bit of a cooldown. So we ended up just getting our spell book. You always end up getting it, and it's just giving us different spells that we can end up equipping. So we could drag and drop this down here, and it's going to take 2 Crimson Ash anytime we want to cast this fire spell, which has 35 damage, 75% chance to set the ground on fire for 4 turns. And very roguelike, very RPG, very cool, you know. I was having a lot of fun with this one. One thing that I would say for sure, I do want to recommend that if you end up getting this game for yourself, and if you end up playing through it, go towards ranged because while melee attacks are typically very powerful, and a little bit later on you're going to be one-shotting everything as you use your ranged attacks on them, depending on the weapon. Generally speaking, I found that certain enemies, especially once you end up getting to the Ice Fortress, it's impossible to fight them as a melee character, because what would end up happening in the Ice Fortress is there was these weird griffin enemies that would cast ice on the ground that would make you slide away from them every single time you tried to move. So you would waste a turn trying to move 1 step up to them, slide across the map, then they would hit you with another ice spell that would knock you right back where you came from. And ultimately speaking, it was impossible to get through that without you know, without using any ranged attacks. I was just doing it just for testing, not to say that I didn't have any ranged magic or ranged weapons that I could have ended up using, right? So this is kind of the exit to the dungeon. Another scroll, maybe this will lead to even better treasure. Oh yeah. It's telling us that we've survived, go through the magical rift, improve your abilities, teach you stuff, blah, 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 blah. And the other thing is that if we ended up going through the area, we would get, of course, a lot more experience for killing all the enemies and for unlocking all the chests. And a little bit later on, you're going to end up running into merchants that will be in the middle of dungeons, so they're actually really helpful. They have limited items though, so if you want to buy 5 potions off them and that's all they have in their supply, as far as I know, they're not going to end up respawning that. But we're just going to go to the town aspect just so I can show you where it's at and what this is all about and everything like that. So this is kind of our main hub area where we're going to be going on to any of the missions. Up here is just the quest giver. So she's kind of explaining that she ended up hiring us and recruiting a bunch of other people. Pretty much anybody that can read those magic scrolls that teleport us here has the potential to use magic. And our character is a little bit of he's like a thief character. So he's very confused at this, right? And this area is kind of a sanctuary that's hidden from this evil general wizard dude who's like trying to take over the world, you know, all that usual stuff where we're trying to fight them off and everything. And here's a little sneak preview of some of the later game enemies. Of course, they have a little Cthulhu monster. What game doesn't, right? Those slime enemies, by the way, that big slimy creature, those guys suck because when you kill them, they end up leaving a huge slime trail on the ground, and it's very, very difficult to end up walking away from it. Now, the other thing, too, is while we can still use the mouse and a little bit of hotkeys, you can, of course, control your character with WASD, but personally speaking, I wouldn't really recommend it just because of the way that it ends up controlling. So what they're trying to teach us here is that every time you end up gaining a level, you end up gaining 1 spell point, and that can then be spent on upgrading a specific spell or unlocking a new one. So once we get to level 3, we could get a couple different spells, kind of going down a spell tree, right? And it, you know, requires Fireball at rank 10 in order to get the Meteor. So you kind of pick and choose the spells that you personally enjoy rather than, well, yeah, I guess you kind of just do one of each, right? But we can only upgrade our spell right now, which ended up changing the chance of the fire being cast as well as adding a whole bunch more extra damage to the spell, right? And then like I said, as we're unlocking different characters, like this is the character that we just found in the start of the dungeon. He's pretty much the bank. And then there's going to be another character that we're going to run into who's going to be the smithy right here. And each of the different characters that has a shop is going to end up it's got an interesting mechanic where as you end up selling items to that shop, it's going to lower the cost to upgrade it. And of course, upgrading it is going to give you like better supplies and yada, yada, yada. Typical stuff that you would expect. But for the time being, this is, I guess they're not letting us go there yet, but that's just the basic merchant where we can sell stuff. As far as I know, he can't actually upgrade. I think he's just the merchant. So you kind of use him to just sell your unwanted gear right now. But again, I would recommend saving as much of it as you can, just so that you can end up selling it to a shop that you want to actually upgrade, right? So we could, like this right here, this is the Crimson Ash, which is used for our magic. That's why we only have 29, thus we have 14 uses of our Fireball. And we didn't get to actually use the spear, but they're actually pretty good just in general. This one's a really bad one, but the advantage and disadvantage is that the spear is usually going to end up having higher damage than a one-handed weapon, but it means that we can't actually use a shield, right? And of course, this being a little bit more expensive, you can see that it's going to be really, really good. Nice, like, visual representation of stuff, like, while we're hovering over this, you don't even need to look at the gear. You can just see this arrow on the gear itself if you want to know instantly, okay, is this better? Is this something that I need to actually look at? And as you saw as we hovered over this item, any new items that you end up finding out in the world are going to show up as yellow until you end up hovering over them. So very nice mechanics with stuff like that. The shop ends up being quite expensive at first, but don't worry, you end up getting all the stuff from it like right away. There's also so many different weapons. You know, there's archery, there's spells and stuff like that. There's magic wands that of course end up expiring and having durability, while most of the default actual weapons won't end up doing stuff like that. So right here you can see upgrade storage. Now him, I don't think we can end up selling anything to, but if you want to keep like special legendary gear, and that's the thing too, even with these booties, you can see that they have a blue outline around them, meaning that they're kind of like a magical item rather than being, you know, like legendary and purples and stuff like that, right? And again, as you end up leveling them up, they're going to end up giving different enhancements, whether that is going to be bonus stats, or in some cases, I ended up finding a shield that I leveled up that ended up making like wisps appear around me anytime an enemy would actually damage me, right? And then last but not least, just leveling up your character in general. where we're gonna have power, which is just damage in all forms. What is that? Finesse. Yeah, that's right. Which is gonna be for chance of blocking, crit hits, disarming traps, and detecting secrets, because there's all sorts of secrets in this game. And then stamina, which is just health and the ability to absorb damage. So while this game might seem very simple, it's actually very complex, which is what I really, really enjoy about it. And that's the thing too, is, like I said, you know, as I was playing on my other file, like even in the second dungeon, it ramps up in difficulty like crazy. Like, you gotta be careful that you don't end up getting wrecked, you know? It's an absolutely awesome game. Links will be in the description for everything, folks. And that pretty much covers the summary of what this game is. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully it helped in your decision as to whether or not you wanted to actually get this one. But really, this is an awesome game. Like, if I had the time to play through it, I definitely would. I already played like an hour off camera. Granted, a lot of that time is spent taking turns in the combat and stuff like that, and that's why I don't have the time for that. But yeah, I almost forgot about this. So that little dragon creature that we ended up having, yeah, he's on a cooldown, and for some reason it's like a real life hour before you could take him into the next mission, and then it would be another hour. So I mean, I'm assuming you'll end up getting different pets like throughout your adventure, and you kind of pick and choose whether or not you want to end up using them for different missions and stuff. But that's quite a long wait. I don't really understand it. Of course, the counter is going down as you're in the middle of dungeons and stuff like that, but yeesh. Anyways, thanks for watching, folks. Very much appreciate it. Sayonara, and stay epic.
Believe in yourself.